Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope that you are doing really well. Today, I want to talk to you about the unfortunate events that are happening both locally in my community, where there are tons of these smash and grabs, where looters are just pulling up with 80 people outside of all these different buildings, and they're just going in and they're just, ripping them off. And then all the way to the unfortunate event that's happened in the parade where you've experienced loss of life, right? You have two different extremes. You have loss of material possessions, then you have loss of human life, which there obviously is no comparison. My deepest sympathy goes out to anybody that knows anyone or has had anyone involved in the issue that happened at the parade in Wisconsin. I think it's the most cowardly and just horrifying things that can happen, and I don't have any words for it other than my deepest sympathy to those who have experienced anything, and I hope that that never happens to you or anybody that you know. The best thing I think you can do moving forward is how to prevent anything like that from happening, and how can you be better prepared, right? As being in the facility management world, there are so many things that happen on a day-to-day basis and so many different aspects of the property that you're involved in, whether one day means interacting with so many different types of people everywhere from. So what can you put in place today so that in the event something like this happens, you might not be able to prevent everything, and you certainly can't prevent everything, but that doesn't mean you can't be prepared for what to do if something happens. It's the same reason you practice fire drills, earthquake drills, what to do in the event of any sort of general natural disaster emergency. The same can be true for a lot of these different situations. I also think it's really important for you to assemble a emergency response team, right? And that can be anything from the right contractor setup in the event something were to happen, whether that's graffiti on the side of a building, broken windows, emergency heat, emergency cooling, additional security. What systems and policies are you going to put in place to allow you to remain calm during emergency situations, respond, not react, and that you're composed during all of this, and that you've prepared for it. I think that should be your key objective, is to come across as somebody that has thought about this and what you're going to do when it happens. I can tell you a few of the things that have happened to me in the past year or so, a lot of which I had thought about. I never thought it was going to apply to me. I certainly didn't know how I was going to respond, but having a system in place would have made things that much easier. And rather than fumbling around wondering what to do, did I miss anything, I can think through it with a team in a calm situation, in a low stress environment, and get answers to questions that I need for the future. Hopefully I'll never have to use them, but in the event that I did, it would have just been so easy to go down that list. I can tell you that emotions run high when you show up to work and the truck is gone and you don't know what to do. You go, did somebody take it? Did somebody steal it? That can't happen. Did somebody tow it? Right? What happened? Did the landlord tow it? Why did this happen? Right? But if you had a system to go back and say, okay, in the event your truck is gone, these are your systems. Oh, we had a key check system in place. Oh, it looks like the landlord, we called the landlord, we called the towing company. So what's the next step? Well, I guess at this point, if you've cleared it with your higher ups, you need to file a police report. You need to file an insurance claim. You need to make sure that whatever you tell them specifically, you're very clear about where it was, how it was, right? Your whole process from start to finish. And if I had something like that to rely on as a reference, it would have made my life a lot easier. Some of the contractors and vendors that I recommend you to circle up with now, in the event that you haven't had any of these issues, would be, in no particular order, something along the lines of this. I would look for a board up company, right? With all the issues that are happening from the onset of the pandemic to all these protests, everything in between. Unfortunately, a lot of storefronts have had, windows broken, things stolen, material goods. And from that spawned companies that do board ups, right? A lot of window companies will also do 24-hour emergency board up service, right? Now's the time just to get a few of these people in your quiver, right? So you can have 2 or 3 window vendors that also provide 24-hour service in the event you walk into a broken window, or if you get the call in the middle of the night, what do you do, right? How can you duplicate yourself? I've talked about a lot in the past. This is one way to do it, where you can get the phone call, you can make the phone call, someone else can show up that has the materials and the experience doing it, and doing it in a fraction of the time that's satisfying to both you and your company. The next vendor I would lean on would be your painting contractors, right? What painting contractors do you currently work with, and can you spell out what an emergency situation looks like? Years ago, I walked a property that was right alongside the freeway, and that property had been defaced, right? It had some pretty horrible things written on the side. Not that anybody's writing anything polite in graffiti on a freeway, but I needed to get that done immediately. I was fortunate that I had a contractor I'd worked with. We had done the same thing in the past. He knows exactly what type of paint to use, that's blocking, that's going to also work as a primer, so on and so forth. And then we rolled out that section and had that thing done, very, very quickly. Another company that I had to use due to theft, when people were cutting into the side of our building, trying to break and enter, as well as some storage units we had outside, was a barrier company, barrier and fence, right? So now's the time again to reach out to equipment rental companies, some fencing companies in general. Can they supply you with barricades in the event that you do have somebody break into something? What temporary boundaries can you put in place as a buffer to help that, right? Find out their rates. And again, your intention of this is not just to merely go through the exercise for fun, but to establish SOPs for something like this if it were to happen in the future at this property or further on in your career. The next vendor that I would look up would be a security company. If you do not already have an in-house security company, it may be worthwhile reaching out to 2 or 3 private security companies that can provide foot patrol and general property surveillance, right? A lot of times they will offer a couple different things. You can do scheduled times where they'll come and patrol, or you can have them random throughout the evening. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. I would just weigh out what specifically you're looking for depending on your area and how that can best benefit you. It's great with these companies. Again, it's a duplication of yourself. Oftentimes they'll provide reports that are part of their patrol, where they put in pictures, they put in notes. They're also authorized to call the police. They can do whatever on your behalf. They can file the reports. It's really a great service to have. Depending on the frequency of it, it can range from $300 to no limit really, depending on how many properties you have, how many things you want to employ, and what you envision for that. But a security company is really a great option. The next would be not necessarily a company, but it would be looking into what your current insurance policy looks like. What are your minimums? What are your deductibles? What are the coverages? Review the language of theft, loss, property loss, etc. Maybe sit down with your boss. Maybe you can get on the phone with your controller. Maybe you have a legal counsel that you can circle up with. Just carve out 15 to 20 minutes, ask for that document. Maybe you can make a phone call to whoever your insurance company is and just ask them some general questions. Just say, hey, with everything going on, to make sure that we have the correct coverage in the event something happens, right? I think it's going to pay off tenfold for you. Again, all of these things suck, right? I mean, it sucks because it's a waste of your time. It disrupts productivity. You could be doing so many other things, and it's absolutely a pain in the ass to deal with. But as long as you have your health, life is good, right? You can always replace things, material possessions, right? They're certainly important. Most of the time, they're not irreplaceable. Loss of life is something that's on a totally different level. In addition to if somebody were to get physically injured and have like a lifelong debilitating impairment, I mean, that would just be the second worst thing to loss of life, of course. And I wanted to share how this past year and a half has been for me, a couple of things that have been happening at my facilities, hopefully some strategies that you can implement to prevent any injuries or issues with people, and keeping your safety paramount, so that if anything does happen, you have a plan for it, you're ready to go, you know what to do, and that you can really reduce the chance of people being in harm's way. Much more calm about the situation, You're going to be ready to respond, not react, and how to deal with these things. So having an ERP for all these different things, accompanied by a standard operating procedure, which is nothing more than an outline of how to achieve a certain outcome by following a set of steps or a series of events. Right? If you need to turn on a light switch, what do you do? Right? Think of it as simple as possible. It doesn't need to be this elaborate document, just a guiding principle. So this year, like I said, has been really unique, and I've had everything from broken windows to stolen cars and stolen other components. And I'll kind of walk you through what I've set up in place. You know, over the summer, I've had unfortunate events where I've walked into my office, there was a rock through the window, and the next thing you know, it's, hey, what do I do, right? And not only having standard operating procedures along with your response plans, but coming up with a cadence to implement audits, right? How can you go to different departments? What type of live drills can you actually practice and then actually walk through, right? And sometimes it's physically acting it out, but other times you can go up to other department members or other team members and just ask them, hey, can you walk me through what would happen in the event this happens, whether it's an earthquake, active shooter, or you go outside and there's a flat tire in your car, right? Just real world, real life examples, and have them walk you through that, because having them go through it and understand it is only going to make them more ready for it. Quick example, I could have avoided something like this in my current role, where we had an employee pull the fire alarm instead of disarm the alarm panel. When he stayed late at work one night, the alarm started going off. He didn't know what to do. You hear these blaring alarms. So out of panic, he goes over, pulls the fire alarm, right? Was it his fault? Maybe, but at the end of the day, you know, it's coming up with systems and strategies that help other people. A list of vendors and people that I've worked with, I'm just going to kind of list off at random, people that you can work with, you know, based on a couple instances I've had this summer. So it can range from having emergency HVAC all the way to the police department and everywhere in between. Quick couple examples. This summer, we walk into the building, we go to turn on the air conditioning, doesn't turn on. You know, not a big deal, kind of happens, right? It's somewhat normal. Go up on the roof, we find out someone else had been on the roof. Merry Christmas, right? In July. Somebody climbs on the roof, they cut all the copper out of all of our rooftop units. They pull off the panels of everything, cut copper out of the compressor, cut copper off the roof drains, condensate lines, you name it, right? Fortunately, we had a good team in place. We had a list of contractors we could call. We had them come out. We had a system in place where we could set up some emergency cooling, brought a little emergency unit into our warehouse, and we were able to provide cooling while the main rooftop unit got repaired. So having contacts like that is only going to help you out. I also walked into our building and found that, you know, people had cut into our storage unit, right? Modern technology is fantastic, and it's also horrifying, where now people have the power of sawzalls in their hands on these 18-volt cordless sawzalls, it's amazing when they're used for the right reasons, but it's also terrifying when you have the criminal mindset behind it. So what did we do? We called our rental company. We had to get portable barriers set up around and form a perimeter with the fencing, and then we had to install cameras. It was a bit of a nightmare. Being able to rely on those resources where you know what to do in the event, and it hadn't been documented, hey, if someone breaks into this, what do I do? Okay, I need to call and get these things set up. Here's who provides a list of barrier companies for us. Usually it's all the equipment rentals will provide something like this. One day we left our work truck outside over the summer, go back into the office, go to start the truck, something clearly sounds wrong. Find out someone had slipped underneath our van, clipped the catalytic converter off, right? So what do you do in those situations? If there's theft or vandalism that occurs on property, is that an insurance claim? Is that a police? Is it a combination of things? Do you just eat it and tell your finance that this is what happened? Well, I can tell you it forced me to write an SOP. So now we have, in the event of vandalism, prior to vandalism, you need to verify what your insurance says. So if I were you right now, I would get with your company controller or your finance team and find out not only the deductibles on your insurance, but what your insurance stipulates? What's the language inside of it? Are you covered under these things for theft? What's your amount, right? What are the details of it, so that you can speak more knowledgeably about what happens if something like this were to occur. So whether that's theft of vehicle, which we also had this year, there were, I think, 3 vehicles had been stolen, catalytic converters stolen, people cutting into the side of a storage container, stealing, thousands of dollars worth of power electronic equipment. And then, of course, we had somebody climb on the roof and cut out all the copper from these rooftop units, which are now just such a nightmare. So ensuring you know what to do during these situations, right? It's file a police report, notify your manager, file a police report, file an insurance claim, notify your team, and then what are you going to set up in the interim? So, coming up with these systems is absolutely imperative to your success in ensuring that people go home safe every day, in addition to keeping your head on a swivel and encouraging your employees to just be aware of situations, right? Whether it's time of day, whether it's time of year, things that are going on currently, current events, just how to stay up to date with what's going on and just aware of it and alert. Again, being optimistic, always thinking that, people are great people, a lot of good things out there, but being well aware that there are terrible people out there too, right? There's lawyers, there's doctors, and then there's also lawyers and doctors that get disbarred, and there's doctors that lose their license, right? There's all sorts of extremes, and hopefully, putting up with these types of systems is going to help you respond, not react to something that happens in the future, right? There's an entire list of emergency response plans ranging from active shooter all the way to typhoons and everywhere in between, right? But just stay up to date with what's going on in the world today, right? Just staying attuned to what's going on so that you can be aware, and then just having it as talking points. So if you're holding daily meetings, if you're holding weekly meetings, right? Just a quick email blurb or just a happy holidays. We want you to stay safe message to your team. By the way, please be aware, keep your items in your car. If you're going through these issues, please be aware that these things have happened, right? Some sort of mild training to really help prevent you from, to help keep you ready, right? If you stay ready, you never have to get ready. And I think that's the message, right? Not that everything is preventable, because it's certainly not, but just being aware of what's going on and encouraging others to do the same, right? And you hope that enough people will tell enough people that, something like this, if it saves one person's life, then it's been worth it. From the facility management side as well, as you are in the facility management space or looking to get into it, one of the biggest benefits of being in this industry is that you have the ability to walk all over property all the time. But what that also means is you're interfacing with a wide variety of different people. It could be everyone from your own team to outside vendors, and then just the general public, right? Everywhere in between, depending on your location, whether it's a strip mall, a hotel, a commercial property, a plant, right? There are numerous instances of things that have happened, but you're always, it's impossible to prepare for every type of situation out there. But I think if you can get a general practice down, that anytime something comes up that's big enough to make the news and kind of shake people about what's going on, it's probably a good idea to try and draft a standard operating procedure and emergency response plan tailored to that general issue that's going on. So that would be my advice to you. I hope that you all stay safe during these holiday seasons. Be aware, be vigilant, but also spread love, right? Be happy, be that friend for somebody. And I hope that you have a great day and that you and your family have a wonderful holiday. Until next time, be great.